let's talk about the powers of Congress. This will be a little longer video because there's, quite a few of them. We're really going to talk about the powers of Congress according to the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 are what's known as the enumerated powers. Those are powers that are expressly stated. There is no confusion. We know for sure that these are powers that are given to Congress. The first one that they talk about is collecting taxes, duties, and paying debts. So Congress has the ability to collect taxes, collect any kind of duties, and they have the power to pay debts. Because of the promoting the general welfare, they can collect those debts. Congress also has the power to borrow money, which they've done quite frequently. They do have that power is given to by the Constitution. The Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce. See the other video on regulating commerce for kind of more detail on that. But that's a big one. That's a really big one. Congress has the power to naturalization, so providing what are the regulations for becoming a U.S. citizen. Congress can determine what exactly that is. Currently, remember, it is you got to have to pass a written exam, kind of showing you know a little bit of U.S. history, U.S. government, sure you can read a little bit of English, so you can be a productive member of society, you can vote. You have to pledge allegiance to the U.S. government, promise if you're drafted, you'd serve in the military, even if it's against your religious beliefs. You'd serve in a non-combat role, that sort of thing. Congress sets bankruptcy laws. So you can't just run in a room and declare bankruptcy like Michael Scott in The Office. I wish that was the way it worked. But they determine what it actually is that will let you declare bankruptcy. Okay. Congress can coin money. So there's one U.S. currency. We don't have 50 states that had all different kinds of money. Remember, that was a major issue under the Articles of Confederation, is every state was making their own money, and we had Michigan. Well, Michigan wasn't around back then, but they had dollars in New York, and Pennsylvania had their own money, and Virginia had their money. It was just a fiasco. Congress has the ability to punish counterfeiters. So if you decide you want to get in on the printing money, that's a pretty big no-no. You're going to go to prison for quite a while. I don't know if anybody out there played Mini Society when they were younger, but I was a pretty big counterfeiter during Mini Society. I liked to print out money. Never got caught, so that was a good thing. I got lucky. Establish post office. Congress is going to establish post office so we can have some communication. It's a pretty big one. Patents and copyrights. So patents were like inventions. So let's just say, I think I told this story when I was in class early in the year. My brother and I made this basketball board game. If I ever wanted to sell that, I could definitely like put in for a patent, so nobody could copy my idea for a little bit of time. Now, it's pretty competitive. Some people might have a very close variation, make some slight tweak, and then they'd sell it, but they can't do the exact same thing. A creative work. If I could come up with a book, if I write a book or a poem, I can copy, or a logo, I can copyright that so nobody can copy my idea, my story, or my logo, sort of thing. Like I mentioned in a different video, we can go into that. Congress can create courts and change jurisdictions and numbers of judges. Pretty big one. They can punish piracies on the high sea. So you don't think of pirates in Congress very often, but it's something they can do. So kind of look into that. Congress can declare war. Remember, declaring war and making war are two different things. Remember, we said presidents oftentimes will send troops into combat situations without a declaration of war. So we really haven't declared war since World War II. That doesn't mean like we went to Korea. That doesn't mean we went to Vietnam. That doesn't mean Afghanistan, Iraq. Those were pretty volatile situations. I mean, a lot of people people call it the Vietnam War and the Korean War. Technically, it wasn't a war. It looked like one, felt like one. Technically, they never really declared war. Remember, like I said in class, it's kind of like me getting in a fight in the playground and saying, if I never say it's a fight, it's not a fight. Doesn't mean I didn't punch you or bite you or pull your hair or whatever it is. But if I never really declared that it's a fight, theoretically you wouldn't call it one, I guess. Call it a conflict. I know that seems pretty ridiculous, but that's the way it works. All right, when it comes to foreign policy, Congress has the ability to maintain an army, maintain a navy, and create rules for the Army and the Navy. So they do all of that. They also can call for a militia. If there's ever an invasion or a natural disaster, they can call on the militia. So in this case, like the National Guard, like during Hurricane Katrina, they utilized the National Guard to get people out of there and all sorts of things. So they can call on the militia. They are responsible for arming the militia, disciplining and regulating the militia, for sure. They're in charge of maintaining all government structure. So that means like monuments and buildings, forts, and that sort of thing. And the last and not least is the necessary and proper cause. Remember, they said that Congress has the ability to do anything that's necessary to carry out their laws, or anything as long as it's proper, like within the scope of the law. So remember, we talked about things like because they can maintain an army. One can argue that also means it's legal for them to have a draft. So you can kind of say it's a reasonable extrapolation because of the necessary and proper clause. The necessary and proper clause, remember, are those like implied powers. They're not stated, kind of like all these are. So they're not expressed like all these, but they're implied. Because you have the power to do this, it's implied you can do some other things off of that. And then the necessary and proper clause gives you that reason. I always look at it that way. It's the very last one, and I just can imagine they're sitting there coming up with all these ideas of things that Congress can do, and somebody looks up and it's like, it's 5 o'clock, I want to go eat dinner. Let's just come up with one catch-all to cover the rest. So they can do anything else off this, because the necessary and proper clause gives them quite a bit of power. So it's a pretty big one. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to let me know. But I will see you around. You guys have a good one.